What's happening, guys? Today I'm coming at you with another one of these different kind of videos, and this is another one I've been wanting to do for a really long time, and that is the 4G63 swapped Mighty Max. How much did it cost to build? I actually recently cleaned the garage really well, like the cleanest it's been since we lived here, so I figured I would just shoot this in the garage today. Hey, what are you doing? You can help me? Help me with this video? So I've said in a lot of my videos that this is a really cheap build to do, and I don't think some of you actually understand how cheap you can actually do this for. So yes, I did it cheaper than probably most people do it that do this swap, which there's really not that many, but there are a few, and most people go to links to make it look nicer than I do. And for me, at the time when I was doing this build, I didn't have just a whole lot of money to throw away on it, so I was trying to do it as budget as possible while still making a reliable build. So this is going to be how I did that and how much I actually spent on the thing. So of course, the first thing you're going to need if you're doing this build is a truck. So on this truck I spent $800, and when I bought it, it actually still ran and drive. I actually drove this truck for a year, took it on multiple long trips and stuff. I drove it for a full year before the engine finally just conked out on me. It was just, I actually probably could have rebuilt it. I'm sure I could have, but I just figured for all that trouble and all that effort and buying a new carburetor, I could just put the money into the swap. Because a new carburetor for the 2.0 cylinder engine on this truck was like $500 for the cheapest one. And I was not trying to spend that much when you can get a whole donor car for $700, which leads me to my next point. The next thing you need, if you're gonna do a 4G63 swap Mighty Max, is a donor car, you know, an engine. I'll put a couple of pictures over the screen for those of you that haven't seen my build series on this. So obviously, if you're gonna do a 4G63 swapped car of any kind, you need a 4G63. And if you're gonna have this engine in a car, you need a wiring harness for it and fuse box and things like that. You know, you need a few things, the turbo. So in my opinion, the best and easiest way to get all that stuff and know that it's gonna work is just to get an entire donor car, and that way you can take everything out of it that you need. It was a 1999 Eclipse, a front wheel drive one, and I got the thing for $700, and I didn't even have to look that long to find that deal on Craigslist. I'm sure you could find a cheaper one that was T-boned or something like that, because you don't need the shell of the car. You just need the engine and all its components, the turbo and things like that, as much intercooler piping as you can get off of it, and the wiring harness. Do not forget to get the wiring harness. Basically, I just stripped everything off the car that I thought I might need, and then I sold the car to the scrapyard. So, $700 for the entire donor car, and that got me the engine, the harness, and everything else out of the car. $800 for the truck. And then the next thing that you're gonna need is to get rid of your old engine. I sold the old engine for this to a guy for $100. I told him what was up with it, told him it wasn't running, it needed to be rebuilt. And the engines are kind of sort of hard to come by. So he gave me $100 for the engine as is. So I got $100 back on that. And then of course I sold the donor car to the scrapyard, and I got $40 out of it. So I mean, it's better than nothing, and I got the car out of my way. So it's $40 back in my pocket, or back towards the build really. So yeah, I mean, doing a budget engine swap like this, you want to save any kind of nickels and dimes anywhere you can. It really adds up. So unfortunately, things don't always go super smooth on projects like this. Any of you that work on cars know that. So one big complication I ran into, in case you haven't seen my series, is the turbo was bad. It was blown, it was smoking. I mean, it wasn't completely blown up, but it was smoking pretty bad. It had pretty bad shaft play. So I tried to rebuild the turbo that came with the Eclipse, but sadly it just wasn't doable. At least I wasn't able to do it. It was too badly damaged. So I had to buy a new turbo, and this is where I made a little bit of a leap of faith. I don't know if you can tell or not, but this is just an eBay turbo. This was the cheapest turbo I could find that would work, and I spent $200 on this eBay turbo. I actually think it was like 180 or something, but you know, we'll just say it was 200 for the ease of doing the math. And like I said in my other video, I've been dailying the thing for 6 months with no problems, and I boost the heck out of it everywhere. So I'm gonna say so far that this eBay turbo is a win. Now, if you're building like a 1,000 horsepower car or something like that, you may want to go with a better turbo, but for this, it's working great. It spools up nicely, so I don't know. I think a lot of the controversy around eBay turbos is maybe coming from people that haven't tried them, or maybe I just got a good one. I don't know. I did go through the steps to prime it and stuff before I ever started the car, so maybe that's a big difference, but I don't know. In my experience, eBay turbos are not that bad. And something else you may or may not have to spend money on, depending on the condition of the motor you get, is a bunch of gaskets and timing and things like that. So I put basically completely new everything on the engine, new timing kit, new pulleys, new gaskets all throughout it. I did a balance shaft delete. You know, I just put new everything on it, new water pump, because I wanted to have a reliable truck that I could depend on and not have to work on much. And that's basically what it's been once I got the kinks ironed out. So that was worth it in my opinion. And what I spent on all that miscellaneous stuff for the engine was about 200 bucks. Gaskets, timing kit, you know, get quality stuff. And like the timing cover here, the person had taken the whole timing cover off, and I did not want to get a rock up in there and throw off my timing, so I purchased timing cover, and it's a little bit expensive. So 200 bucks on all that stuff. Another setback that I had with the build was that the fuel pump that came with the Eclipse was shot. So I had to buy a new fuel pump, but I really wasn't that upset about it because that allowed me to upgrade to a Walbro 255. And on this truck, I decided to run an external pump because it was external previously, so it just was easier than trying to put one in tank. So it's real nice and accessible right here. I do plan on adjusting it so this fuel line doesn't hang so low. I mean, it's not that bad, but you know, it was something temporary that I just never did get around to fixing, but I'll fix that soon. It's not a big deal. But now I have a pump that will support more horsepower when I do get around to doing that. So I do plan on getting a de-assembling ECU, working on tuning it myself. They're getting bigger injectors. I've already got a 16G turbo, so I plan on making some power with this thing eventually, but for now, I just need a reliable truck, and it makes pretty good power anyways. You know, I think the stock power on these was around 200, a little over 200. And in this light truck, that feels like a rocket ship, so I'm not itching for more power anytime soon. But it is nice to know that I only need a few things. Basically, an ECU and injectors is all I need to make more power, so that's cool. Alright, so the last thing that I had to spend money on for this build was a front mount intercooler. Now the Eclipse comes with, I think, a top or a side mount cooler stock. I'm not really sure what it actually comes with stock, but the previous owner had actually a front mount intercooler on the Eclipse, but it was a goofy one where both ports came out of the side. Due to the way that the engine is oriented in the front wheel drive car, you know, it's sideways because it's front wheel drive. I guess it was easier for them to make the kit like that. But for this build, obviously that would have been a lot of extra piping, a lot of extra space that would make the turbo lag more, and it just didn't make sense. So this intercooler is actually off an Evo 8. I think I got it for 40 bucks off Craigslist, and it's been great. It's worked great, it looks great, I love it. It made routing the intercooler piping super easy. So yeah, 40 bucks for that, and I have an intercooler, nice front mount intercooler, and it's nice and big, so I'm able to make more power off that same intercooler, you know, without having to upgrade it, so that's good. Alright, so when you put all that together, you got the truck for 800 bucks, you got the donor car for 700 bucks, sell the old engine for 100 bucks, sell the old car to the scrapyard for 40 bucks, then you buy a turbo for 200 bucks, buy gaskets and accessories for 200 bucks, a fuel pump for 50 bucks, and then an intercooler for 40 bucks. This is gonna leave you with a grand total of 1,850 bucks, period. That's total, and you have a working, driving, running, reliable 4G63 powered Mighty Max. I mean, you can't beat that. You can hardly find a bigger truck for less than 3,000 or 4,000 bucks, you know? And then this, you have a turbo mini truck for less than 2,000 bucks. And I mean, depending on the condition of your donor car, you may not have to get new gaskets or a new fuel pump or intercooler or things like that. So depending on your circumstances, you would not have to spend that much. This swap could definitely be done for less than that. So yeah, I mean, what other reason do you need? Like, go build one. There's no reason not to do it. The world needs more 4G63 swap Mighty Maxes. So get out there and build one. Appreciate you guys watching, and have a good day. Oh, And I forgot to mention the gauges and things that I added inside, which wasn't much, but basically I just got like a probably $10 or $15 set of Harbor Freight gauges for water, temp, and oil pressure. And then this was also Harbor Freight for like 15 bucks. And that was part of the 200 that went to like things for the engine. So yeah, this was like literally $1 from China. It took like 3 months to come in, but this is the gauge that tells you what your voltage is at, so you know if your alternator's charging or not. So yeah, that's all included. That includes the interior stuff. These seats, I don't think I've ever mentioned it before. I did that before I started the channel, but this seat is actually a back seat out of a Subaru Impreza, so that's pretty cool. And then I didn't include this in the price because you don't need it to have a running truck, but I only spent 50 bucks, I think, on this light bar. I got it off some guy that came into my work just wanting to sell it. So the light bar is 50 bucks, and then I just made the mounts out of some scrap metal I had laying around. And yeah, can't beat it. And then the roof racks I got for free from my father-in-law, so can't beat that either. They're actually not even for this truck. They're out of something else, but hey, what are you doing? They're actually for something else, but they fit right on this truck, so that was nice.